I'm looking for something that will have the common ground between my creative pursuit and my tech pursuit. So what I found was to continuously doing the things that I love to do, which is art and tech at scale through blockchain tech.
Hi, and welcome to the Unit podcast. Here we'll be taking a deep dive into the metaverse, exploring the blockchain, NFTs, tokens, and coins, as well as the hottest play to earn trends with Web3's most prominent figures.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the Unit podcast. I am your host, the Derbied One, also known as Craig Wilson. I'm the Derbied One pretty much everywhere on social media, so you can check it out, check me out. You can also look up Unit everywhere on social media and give us a follow and see what else we're up to. So today I'm here with Ismael Jerusalem of Only. And Ishmael, how are you doing today?
Hi there. Thanks for having me here. Great. Everything seems fine. We're actually continuously building despite the bear market. And yeah, glad to be here. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, the bear market has definitely hit us, but we all knew, this is an up and down space. It's going to happen, and there's going to be a really, really, really big bear market, if you ask me, at some point, especially for NFTs. A lot of them are going to go to zero, and then on the other side, we'll see who's made something very viable and who, kind of comes out of the ashes. Um, so man, we've gotten to talk a few times in various Twitter spaces, but I'd love to know a bit more about you. As the audience knows, I'm really about the people, and I think the people are the ones that fuel this economy, this new economy that we are building within Web3. So I would love to know a little bit about you. Tell them where you live, and maybe your origin story. So were there any early signs you think that you can think of that where you knew you were entrepreneurial or creative, or how did you get started?
All right. I think that's a great start. So, hey, again, GM everybody. So, I'm Ismael Jerusalem. You can call me Isma for short. And currently, I'm the CEO and founder of Only. Before my Web3 journey started, actually, I am also an artist, and I'm also my profession is a dev. So back then, I think starting 2016, I started building a community of creatives here in the Philippines. So I'm from the Philippines. I'm based here in the Bicol region. So I'm from the province. Uh, this is where my journey started from the grassroots, engaging myself with local artists. So yeah, let's go back in 2016. I've started hosting creative events back then, hosting workshops, seminars, art fairs, art exhibits for the local artists. Because my main motivation back then was there were no such events back in that day. When I, as a young aspiring artist, I've been looking forward to attend those kind of events. But since no one has ever no one is stepping up to host such events. So what I did was to start hosting events like that, hosting art fairs, uh, art exhibits, seminars, workshops. So in general, it's like we're inviting artists from other places to go in our place, to go here in our province, to conduct workshops, seminars, so that the local creative community here can learn more about how their art style is, what's their culture, how they create their art, learn more about their journey, get inspired, and at some point, at least for the creative community here to get motivated and continue on their creative pursuit. So yeah, and aside from that, so that's I'm really passionate on doing creative stuff. But on the other hand, as a professional, I'm a software dev. So I was my profession is on the IT industry, and I've been involved in cultivating the tech startup community here. So we have a couple of startups here, and I'm also one of the community volunteers in Bicol IT. And Bicol IT is the most active nonprofit org for IT students, professionals, and enthusiasts here in our place. And yeah, I've been highly involved in community events also, but it's more on the dev side. It's like we are having our DevCon. We have our different niche in the tech industry, like mobile dev, uh, web dev, something like that. And yeah, and there is something I'm looking for something that will have the common ground between my creative pursuit and my tech pursuit. So what I found was to continuously doing the things that I love to do, which is art and tech at scale through blockchain tech. So my first encounter with blockchain was it's the early Bitcoin 2013, I think, or 2012, and it's something that associated before with network marketing. So that's my first introduction to blockchain, but it's very informal, and I was so young back then, and I didn't have the capacity to buy one, even though the price is very low back then. And yeah, but it was so very informal. It's like uh someone who's using Bitcoin as a product recruiting you to their company, and you just have to recruit other people to do the same thing for you to earn your own Bitcoin. So that's my informal introduction to blockchain. So fast forward in 2018, I've attended my very first formal introduction to blockchain technology. Uh, Bicol IT hosted a blockchain seminar, and one of the speakers was Rico Zuniga. Rico Zuniga is currently the CTO of SparkPoint, and SparkPoint is also based here in the Philippines. It's one of the most successful blockchain companies here. And yeah, I've learned more about blockchain on how we can integrate the technology, not just with Bitcoin, but into other stuff. So in 2018, I've started exploring the intersection of art, tech, and gaming. So for me to learn more about the technology, I co-founded a startup together with Sir Rico Zuniga in 2019. So I started digging deep into it, into the technology and in-depth learning in 2019 by building Crypto Solitaire. So my formal introduction to the technology and learning more about it is building a game called Crypto Solitaire. Because back then, it's really hard for us to explain how the technology works. There are lots of technicalities. Even now, there is a technical barrier for people to enter Web3. So for us, our idea was 3 years ago is to create games, to create a game that can simply explain what is blockchain, NFT, and the early version of play to earn game. So the idea was, since it's crypto solitaire, it's given for people to understand that if there's a card game, a playing deck, uh, it subconsciously mean that you will play to earn, just like poker, Tong Its, or other playing card games. So that's where we started. And Sariko is one of the uh, earliest pioneer in the gaming tech industry in the Philippines. He actually created Tong Its, so it's an application. It's a card game application. So that's why we collaborated. So I'm more focused on the art aspect, and he's more focused on the game. And for us, and we're both passionate on doing the things that we love to do, and for us to be able to do it at scale, we saw an opportunity through blockchain. So that's how everything got started. And yeah, so the idea of the crypto solitaire was to collaborate with artists to create a collection of playing deck of cards and use it as the cards on the solitaire game. So what we did was we entered the Decentraland Game Jam 2019, and we created a 3D art installation of Solitaire. So we called it a 3D Solitaire Park in the Decentraland. And since it's a competition, we're just a very small team back then. We just have one marketing associate. Her name is Shikina, and Kina is now our chief marketing officer in Only. And we have one developer back then. His name is Aldrich, and Aldrich is now the senior blockchain dev of SparkPoint. So that's how things get evolved in just a span of 3 years. And going back, uh, so yeah, we entered the Decentraland Game Jam 2019. Then we placed 13th out of 100 plus global entries back then. So it was 3 years ago. It's very rare to meet other projects who's building their own Web3 projects back then. So the circle is very small. You can easily identify who are the builders on the space, especially here in the Philippines. I think we were less than 10 projects in back then. Uh, who's also getting involved in blockchain tech. So yeah, I think that's our highest achievement back then, that we placed 13th out of 100 plus entries, having a small team working and operating here in the Philippines. And then suddenly, unfortunately, since it's 2019, I think it's by the last quarter of 2019, and 2020 came and the pandemic hit the world. So I think it's one of the infamous market crash in March 2020, where the market have this nosedive bear market back then because of the lockdowns. Lots of people pulling out their investments in crypto. Prices are going down, and we are pushed to stop the building crypto solitaire. And but we actually didn't totally stop. We just pivot to Only. So this is what Only now. So before, we were creating art, games, and tech. So in Only, for us to be able to continuously build and don't abandon the project, we pivot it to focus more on the art aspect back then. So it was 2020.
Okay,
And
let's
back then, I think, okay, go.
let's stop there before we get into Only and stuff. I actually wanted to. So one, I can hear the passion in your voice. Like it just comes out. It resonates. Uh, I love hearing passion in people's voices, even if I don't understand what they're talking about sometimes. Although I'm following you completely fine, but just in general, you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
so I've gathered that you're very experienced. So thank you for all the whatever building blocks you helped to put in the early days of this space. I definitely appreciate it. I've only been here since last summer, so and they called me an OG. Not even close. I also, you talked a lot about art, and so you said you're an artist, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
And like
yeah.
in your younger days, like when did you start drawing?
Actually, when I was a kid, I loved to draw. Even though my brother, my older brother, my eldest brother, uh, they're actually good at drawing animes, and for me, as someone who's younger than them, I tend to copy their artworks. I've been also drawing animes, and yeah, it all started as a kid. Then in the school, there are some illustrations needed to be drawn on the blackboard. So in our class, I was the one who's creating those illustrations just for the class to see a whole illustration that's needed in the class. And I also joined some poster making contests back then, uh, creating animations, doodles, and yeah, and still as of now, I'm still the creative soul still ignites inside me.
The best is when you have that creative soul that is ignited and you understand business. And in this case, it being on the blockchain and being in Web3, like you understand the tech, the development side. So it sounds like you've got all three mixed together, and if you have a great CMO, you are off to the races, my friend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, you're also very like community based. Like early on in your self intro, you talked a lot about building communities and like holding different events. You and I are the same ilk there. Like I've been creating events and gathering people for as long as I can remember for all sorts of different things. And that's definitely a big part of the Web3 space. How do you feel like community, affects the Web3 space?
Yeah, I think relating what we are doing before Web3 into what is it right now. I'm looking at Web3 as community is the backbone of Web3. So that being said, I think Web3 will not work without the community because it is designed to give more power back to the people. Uh, it not just
Here,
I
here.
mean, what do you mean? Okay, not like Web 2 that people it's more in a corporate centric network, where in Web 3 it's more on a community centric network. So I think it really helps that people that we started building here in Web 3 with the community.
Yeah, amen. Like 100%. I was at a conference recently, and like one thing I kept on telling everybody, this conference was filled with like businessmen and women that weren't really in Web3, like they didn't understand it. And the one sentence, the way I like to wrap up everything you just said, that kind of like just blew their mind and confused them is I would tell them, Web3 is very B2C. It's very business to customer, business to consumer. But when you get into Web3, it is very C to B. It's consumer or customer or community to business, and that's not really a concept that has been fully thoroughly developed yet. Which is why I think Web3 is so revolutionary. But that's exactly what it is. The people have the power in this space. The businesses don't have all the power anymore. So I'm right there with you, my friend.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's more for the community, by the community, and the community will serve really as the backbone or the main framework of this Web 3 space. And we're still very early. There are still lots of improvements, iterations, and more advanced stuff to come. And that's why we're still very early, and building right now is a very perfect timing.
Yeah, agreed. It's like it's such an interesting dichotomy, right? Because we're so early and things need to get easier, but things are being built so quickly. Like the functionality of an NFT is much deeper than just being a JPEG. And I don't like so many people from the outside that aren't in Web3 don't understand that yet. But I mean, there's been AI NFTs since forever. Like it's not, and it's a concept that still people don't wrap their minds around yet. So it's like we're early because the infrastructure still needs to get a little easier. It needs to be a little bit more click and drag ish, for the general consumer to come in. But then it also needs to be, there's also so much tech already built, and the functionality of the blockchain of just the entire space is pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So, like, tell us a little bit more about Only. Like, what is it? And I know you were getting into that, but I wanted to touch base still with some of the other aspects that you brought up.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. So yeah, going back to my story, in 2020 we pivoted to focus more on the art aspect. That's why became only from being crypto solitaire. So only simply means ownership and utility. So that's why it's called only. And we wanted to optimize that aspect of the NFTs, and we wanted to start focusing more on the art side. We created our own marketplace, collaborated with different artists, launched their NFT art collections through our marketplace, through our platform. So the setup was we were like a digital gallery where artists showcase their art, exhibiting it in our platform, and we are the one who's taking good care of the tech and marketing side of the NFTs, because back then in 2020, I think it is the time where NFT art was so bullish that tremendous astronomical prices are being thrown down on the internet. Lots of money are being involved. It's very lucrative space back then, and the market in art and NFT was so lucrative. So that's why we focused more on the art aspect. So we set aside the gaming aspect of what we've been doing before, for us to continue building. And as we go on with Only, we have launched our own token. It's called Own Token, so it's OWN. That's the ticker. It's on CoinGecko and on CoinMarketCap. We named it Own because we fully understand how NFT works. It's all about, in generally, ownership. So we wanted to focus more building on that aspect of the NFTs, all about ownership, and at the same time adding
We're in the
utilities into it.
ownership.
Go
We're
go.
in the ownership economy now. We're in the ownership economy now. So that's the perfect name. That's exactly what Web3 is and NFTs, right? You can own just about anything in this space. Continue.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's all about ownership. And at the same time, can add utility into it. You can create programmable art through NFTs. Just like what we did in Crypto Solitaire, we add programs to art and it became a game. So that's a possibility, and that's an innovation that we are really love to execute in our team. So yeah, and time goes by since 2020, 2021, last year, up till now, we have created our own marketplace. It's called Only Market, and we have our own staking platform. And now this year we're back in creating a game in Mustachio Quest. So, but before we discuss more about the game, before we have collaborated with different artists, especially local artists. And here's a good story of what we did last year. Since we're based here in the Philippines and we're from a province, local artists here in our place got lots of benefit in NFTs, because the NFT, the technology allows them to showcase their artworks into a global market. Because back then in the traditional art market, it's really difficult for an artist, especially living in the province, to showcase their art in a global scale. But NFTs, the blockchain allows it to for every artist to showcase their art in a global scale through the internet. And that really helps lots of artists here in our place, and even the small time artist really benefits from the technology, because imagine you can now sell an item to or an artwork to anyone from other country without you going outside of the Philippines. So yeah, and I think it's revolutionary that we started from the grassroots, from the local artists, before we collaborated with other artists outside our province and created their own NFT art collections. And along our journey, we've met lots of people, we've met lots of communities. And actually, one of the best community I've met was with Crypto RTH. I think we've already encountered them in some Twitter spaces,
Yes, I'm
and they
familiar.
are so active. They help each other. They in every form of art you can see, from visual to poetry to uh to music. They are so passionate about creating art, and NFTs allows each and everyone from the community to showcase their art form in a global scale. And I think that's also one of the most genuine communities I've ever been involved. And yeah, and I think it's there's we're still very early, and lots of artists we can onboard lots of artists through a community, teaching them about Web3 on how they can utilize NFTs with their artworks, that they can add innovations to their artworks and present it in a global scale. So yeah, that's also another part of the community. And yeah, and fast forward, so from focusing more on the art aspect, since we were creating games back then, so only evolve, improve, and we iterate to create games from those art collections. So basically, we simply create games from art collections. So that's what we do here in Only. That those art that we launched in our marketplace, we optimize ownership, and we add more utility into it through creating games. For example, yeah, the one I've mentioned, the Mustachio Quest, it all started by just a PFP collection. It's a 100 hand-drawn PFPs that we sold last year. And we wanted to add more innovations into it. We wanted to add more utility into it. That's why we create games out of that artwork. So I think it's a quite slightly different approach, because before, in creating games, you first create the concept, you create the game design, then you find an artist that will fit your concept. But our approach is slightly different because we create games out of their art. So the concept of the art will evolve around the artist themselves, because the games right now, I don't think that most people really knew who are the artists of the characters that they've been using in the game. I doubt that those weapons who designed who the artists who designed those weapons are really known right now. For example, for a one game, there's a character, a sword, an armor. Uh, I doubt that most people still knew who were the artists of those items. But in our approach, we it's more on artist centric. So we wanted to highlight more about the artists, that the game it was created through their art. So at the same time, while creating the game, we can promote the artist as the main creator of the game. It is not being the company is not being the one who's in front. It's the artist and the developers. So I think that's the whole concept of Web3. It's like eliminating those middlemen, uh, putting back your acknowledgement directly, peer to peer, from someone who created it and to the consumer. So that's what we are. That's how we evolve right now. So Mustachio Quest and Mustachio Verse is one of the many, but right now we are focusing on creating that game. So it's a 3D open world full of tales and treats, because every character has their own backstory. And the main motivation of the game was for the mustachios to protect the land of Mustachioverse, because there are some challenges, enemies, and dungeons that conquers their land. And we call actually the first set of mustachios as the Pathfinders, because they're the first one who discovered the land of Mustachioverse. They were the first civilization back then. Then we created another set of mustachios. We called them the Marauders. So they are the second batch of mustachios. So they entered the Mustachioverse and joined the Pathfinders in cultivating the land and creating lots of stuff inside the world. And then they're the last batch of mustachios, the Rascals. They are the actually the ones who will invade the whole land of Mustachioverse, because they are the 10,000 3D art that we're gonna launch. So everyone is really involved in the story, in building the whole Mustachioverse. So yeah, and for every mustachio, since it's full of tales and treats, we are for every quest that a mustachio would accomplish, they will get a reward token. It's called the quest token. But yeah, and there are some there are some quests that can be done alongside with other mustachios. You have to play together with your friends to accomplish certain quests, to defeat some boss inside the dungeons, to conquer some dungeons. And yeah, and we're still very early on the very early stage of the development, and we are under an accelerator program. It's called GM Friends, and GM Friends is in partnership with YGG and OP Games, and we are one of the first cohort of that accelerator. And actually, this coming week is our demo day, so we have launched the closed beta testing phase of the game. So we have created the initial quest. It's full of maze and puzzles and riddles for you to uh, complete the whole artifact and open a gate where there's a reward on it. And yeah, and I'm so excited to present our demo day this coming 26th.
Wow, congrats on that. So after your demo day, like what's the next step? When do you think it would come out?
Yeah, actually, the purpose of the demo day is to look for additional funding for us to accelerate the development of our game.
Right,
Uh,
got it. Yeah.
yeah, so right after that, I think one of the earliest version of the game can be launched last on the last quarter of this year or early next year.
Okay, that's coming soon. How can people get involved? How can they find you? Do you have a Discord or anything else? Any other communities you want to promote so people could come find you? And then
Ah, sure. Actually, they can look for only.io on Twitter. That's our main account. That's our main platform. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram. Just type, just search for only. And for the Mustachioverse, you can look for us on Twitter at Mustachioverse, and you can visit our website mustachioverse.com. You can join our Discord. The link is already on the website. And yeah, and you can also look for CryptoArtPH on Twitter. They also host several Twitter spaces there, and uh, and I'm also excited for the in real life events because the restriction is now good. It's now available for people to attend in real life events, not like not like the previous years that we are so restricted, and now we are able to attend and host events again where you can meet someone in person, can communicate, talk about your projects, and there are lots of upcoming events here that's being lined up in the Philippines.
yeah, tell us about the Filipino like community that's in Web3 in general, whether it be NFTs, metaverse, blockchain. It's like is it growing? Do you feel like it's strong or like small but tight, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, talking about the Web3 ecosystem in general here in the Philippines, I think uh, we are one of the um how we call this, one of the top country when it comes to NFT mass adoption. And the market here in the Philippines, especially when it comes to play to earn, where we all know about Axie Infinity, and the Philippines is the top market of consuming that game. And we also have here YGG Yield Guild Games. It's one of the biggest guilds in the space, and it's being led by a Filipino. We also have a couple of startups here, just like Breeder DAO. It's also a Filipino-led company. We have OP Games. It's also a Filipino-led company. We also us only Spark Point, and there are lots of startups being founded here in the Philippines. And the market, when it comes to the market in gaming and in art, they are both actively participating in the Web3 economy, because I think the design of Web3 really works in a developing country such as Philippines. And there are lots of talents that's being optimized right now through the technology, because they don't have to go outside the Philippines to just look for a job. Being involved in the Web3, being a metaverse Filipino worker, I think it allows us to utilize our talents and skills to participate in this Web3 economy. And there are also lots of games being developed right now with Filipino-led projects, and the market response is actually quite good. And in when it comes to in real life events, there are a couple of there are lots of guilds attending events. We have lots of guilds here in the Philippines, and I think this is a something that really amazed me, that when it comes to guilds, 97% of the guilds were micro guilds. So micro guilds are just a small guilds composed of, I think, 10 to less than 20 to 10 to 20 scholars, I think. And it is the most number of guilds here in the Philippines.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for all the information. Um, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your long-standing experience in this and the way you are going about things. You know, being an artist and community builder first, in your early days, I think definitely will translate into a lot of success in this space. So I wish only .io all the best. And Mustachio, I'm looking forward to that. I'm very curious to see how that builds and how you guys go about it. But you're a man with a mission, with plenty of passion and experience, community oriented. You seem to be loyal because you mentioned you promoted from within earlier. So I really appreciate you and y'all out there. If you know what I'm about to say, please say it with me. Be a nice human.